Yeah, so I would say a couple of things maybe. We have done quite a bit of research with materials that to some degree designed, so they're not just off the shelf, the normal palette of architectural materials like steel, glass, concrete, etc. But in this case, it's a composite silicone that's basically is similar to a 3D printing process where the material properties can change in a molecular level from something that's fairly rigid to something that's very, very soft and rubbery kind of. And so we use that as a premise to work with that kind of material so the thing itself can move and behave in the wind or with the environment without any motors or any mechanical devices necessarily, but really there's a symbiotic relationship between environmental forces and the material properties of the building.
And the basic properties of working with its surrounds as well, though, too. They offer protection from the sun, also view corridors as well, though, to control of view, control of aperture in that sense as well.
I would say this, it's, for us, it was also kind of an interesting thing to look at the city, or that part of the city which is fairly commercially developed and was part of the competition also, and for the building itself to have a very different character that maybe more reacts or behaves to forces that are not necessarily visible, right? They're not the trees and the balconies around it, but maybe having more to do with sun and wind forces that kind of act on the building. So it has a different appearance, but on purpose to kind of contrast it from the fairly conservative background.
I would argue it kind of looks. It does look in place though. I think it works with the scalar of what's around it, with the surroundings itself though too, and it does react to a number of the forces that are there. The shadow lines, views are on a obtuse angle versus straight out on the sides, etc. So I think there's definitely things where it absolutely, in a lot of ways, possibly fits in better than the quote unquote context buildings.
You go first.
I go first. Okay. Well, again, it's sort of a ecological architecture. I think there is a trend in architecture that's good in a lot of ways, and also is possibly weighted in not the best sense. I think that the true ecological architecture is something that works with its environment, that works well with this environment, but not as a pure, and a lot of our engineers will get a little upset with this, not as a pure calculus of energy calculations and a pure goal of efficiency. It's much more of something that works with it, that's also designed, but designed to do multiple things and work with this environment, and not just be an efficient thing that you're putting on the roof, or you're putting on the window coating, or you're putting on etc. And it's not necessarily add-ons to designs per se, but it's incorporated into designs. That's where I think things are going to be evolved.
Maybe what I can add to that is, for us, it has been, at least we've been interested in working with organic matter and kind of looking at that, especially with digital tools and design, of a way how to interpreting that. And I think over the last 10 years, there has been, I would say, in architecture, an interest, obviously a long interest in biomimicry, start with biomimicry, and that has, I think, really evolved into now, and partially through the kind of tools, but also in other parts, in terms of digital design techniques of production and making things that have changed over the past 10 years. And I think that's why it's, for us, really interesting to look at that topic again, but maybe with more through the lens of advanced digital tools, advanced digital fabrication, new materiality, etc., and figure out a different way of transforming that, where it's not necessarily just an abstraction, but really I would say like a serious analysis. Not that it wasn't serious before, but like the tools are different now. And so I think it allows us to get much closer to something that is much more like an organism. And I think that's for me super interesting, you know, the building that can change over time and behave certain ways, not only in terms of its performance, but also in terms of its aesthetic. And I think that's new and interesting for us at least.